I'm here in the studio with Abdul Zahir Batin, with whose Notorious Ensemble Richard Williams played in the last years of his life. Welcome to the studio, Abdul.
Masalam. To you, Ethan, and everyone, it's a real pleasure to be here in New York City, March the 23rd, 1986, after having Richard Williams, who played in my band for about 9 years, off and on. You know, it's strange. About twice, when I tried to do my record date when I got signed about 2 years ago, approximately it's been since 3 years, as of this year, come this November, but I did do the record. But when he was living, when I tried to do it twice to get him, he couldn't make it, you know, and now that I've done it, he's in the ground. You know, surely we all from Allah, Allah we all return, meaning sure we all from God, and God we all return.
I just want to ask you, when you met Richard and when he started playing with you.
I met Richard Williams in 1964, during the time when I was living in my hometown, where I was born and raised in Baltimore, Maryland, and I met him in Washington, D.C., because my friends were on their way to New York for a weekend vacation just to hang out. Just so happened I didn't have enough for looks, on the contrary, known as money in English, so I just went on over to Washington, D.C., and I went over to the Bohemian Caverns, the late Tony Taylor, who was the proprietor. And during that time, when I went over there that weekend, it was Brother Yusef Lateef. And I never will forget this. This was in 1964. It was on a Saturday night. He had Richard Williams on trumpet and flugelhorn, Mike Knock on piano, and the late Ernie Farrow on bass, and James Black on drums. You know, I liked him so much, special Richard, and what him and Yusef was doing on that front line, that I went back over there that Sunday, and we talked. I can't remember vaguely what all we had talked about, because I was very young during that time. You know, I was like a teenager, you know. Then when I came to New York in 65, I'd say I ran into him around the late 60s. He wasn't the first member in my band. Then all of a sudden he said to me, he said, if you got any work, I'll work with you. So I said to him, I said, well, Uncle Richard, you know, I'm new in town, and I'm just getting started. I can't pay you what you've been getting, you know, after listening to you on all these records and playing with all these, you know, great master musicians. He said, don't worry about it, you know, and that's how it happened, you know.
And he joined your band. That was 69.
No, it wasn't 69. It was somewhere, I'll say around 73, 74, 75.
Yeah.
I can't remember exactly when, you know.
And it was your band. It was the Notorious Ensemble,
well,
right then.
Yeah, let me pull your coat to something, too.
Yeah.
The name of my band, not to take anything away from Richard Williams, the name of my band is Abdul Zahir Batin and the Notorious Ensemble. You know, I know it's a long paragraph, but getting back to Richard, I don't remember exactly when he started working with me, but it was somewhere back there doing, I would say, around the early 70s, mid 70s. You know, all the way up until the mid 80s, because he did play with me at the Cool Jazz Festival and the South Street Seaport Museum and the Full Nine Gallery, which is now called the Hubie Blake Performing Arts Center in my hometown in Baltimore, Maryland. And he did a broadcast with me here on WKCR-FM radio. And we played out at the African Cultural Theater out in Queens. I think this was year before last. Just so happened I couldn't find the master tape. I have it at home, but I can't find it. You know, it's like in a shuffle to look for it. You know.
Yeah. So what is it about Richard's style that made you happy about him in your band?
Well, when Leslie Ford had stepped down, I said, well, gee, I don't know who else to get. And that's when I ran into Richard, and he said something to me, you know. I said, oh, yeah? I said, okay. And I listened to him. I said, gee, he reminds me of Booker Little. You know, and I kept telling myself, I said, you know, I got the best trumpet player in New York. Because I remember during the time when I was trying to get me a record date, when George Butler's been having me run up to Columbia Records since 1978, even though I did something for him and John Hammond, you know. And George's secretary, Genevieve, I stepped in the office just to pass a message on to George, and I had George was playing my music with Richard improvising on the trumpet, and Genevieve said, gee, who's that trumpet player? You know? Wow, he still is soothing, you know? I said, yeah. I said, his name is Richard Williams. Plus, she was noticing his articulation of how he was playing the notes, you know, how he was playing the vowels on the trumpet, you know?
Mm-hmm. So, what, you have some tapes here of some later stuff. What kind of things you got ready to play?
Well,
today?
I have some things when Richard was living, and these are like different settings. We're gonna open up with, I'm gonna take you all down to my hometown. This was in 1982 at the 409 Gallery.
Mm-hmm.
And this personnel on here, along with the great Richard Williams, is Marvin Blackman on tenor saxophone, and Bobby Watson on alto saxophone,
Right.
and Ron Burton on piano, and Michael Fleming on bass. We're going to open up with my theme called Shirk in the Dunya, which is also known as 369 in the Dunya. It's a drum track composition. It's 92 bars long with the swing courses and the drum breaks.
Okay, so music from Abdul Zahir Batin and the Notorious Ensemble featuring the profile E today, Richard Williams.
9 in the Dunya. Once again, you're listening to Bobby Watson on alto saxophone, and tenor saxophone, also on flute, and Marvin Blackman on tenor and alto saxophone, and Richard Williams on trumpet, flugelhorn, and Ron Burton on piano, and Michael Fleming on bass. We're going to take a little intermission for about 10 or 15 minutes, so don't go away. We'll be right back. Thank you.
We just listened to music recorded in Baltimore at the 409 Club with Richard Williams on trumpet. What can you tell us about that date? Well, how'd that gig go?
The gig went fine. It was very strange, though. You know, it was a good room, you know, and the fellow who did the booking, he was a music teacher at my high school. I went to Douglas High School. I never was a student of his, but it was a real pleasure to go down there and play in that room, you know. Mm-hmm. That was one of the most, as far as recording and performances, which he had explained to me that I really didn't need a microphone, you know, but I had one microphone monitor because I had my machine, a 330 deck, a Super Scope. It was run through a Shure mixer.
So you like the 409 Club a lot?
Well, it's really not a club. It's an art gallery, mm-hmm. you know, and it's now called it's formerly the 409 Gallery. It's called the Hubie Blake Performing Arts Center. You know, these are the same people in Baltimore that it's an organization, nonprofit, you know, the African Festival of people, you know, mm-hmm. who have festivals down there in my hometown, mm-hmm. you know, which I've been living here in New York for 21 years, you know. That's like over 20 years, over a decade. But, you know, I want to say this, Ethan, you know, it's just strange because when I would have rehearsals, all those rehearsals, you know, during those, I would say about 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years that Richard Williams, you know, worked in my band, because, you know, I now didn't work. I don't like be working like this week here, that week here, or this week out of town, this week in town, you know. But as far as the rehearsals, his playing really astonished me mentally, you know, my mentality, you know. I said, gee, I said, wow, I said, I never heard him play like this, you know, but during the times that he would be working with Uncle Illinois Jacquet and other different people, he would see me out there listening to him or run into me and say, you have anything coming up? I'll say, yeah. You know, he said, oh, let me know, because he really liked my music, you know. Mm-hmm. He really thought it was very advanced, and I think it did something to his playing-wise also, you know, of all that knowledge that he has, you know. But he certainly did remind me of Booker Little. That's another reason why I laid with him, and when I couldn't get him, I'd get Cecil Bridgewater, mm-hmm. you know, or Virgil Jones.
So you like Booker Little?
Yeah, you know, but I never did get a chance to really check out a lot of records that Booker Little was on, but Richard Williams reminds me of Booker Little. This is what I tell everybody, you mm-hmm. know, but I asked Freddie Hubbard when he was in town, let's say about, since the Blue Note's been open, I'll say maybe about 3 years ago, I asked Freddie Hubbard one night in the dressing room, I said, what do you think of Richard Williams, you know? Freddie Hubbard told me, he said that Richard Williams is an original trumpet player.
Mm-hmm. So so that the last thing we listened to was from '82. What else you got to play for us?
We have another track. This is a blues for a good friend of mine's called Angela. It's a swingster.
Mm-hmm. And who's on this record?
This is from the 409 Gallery, the same personnel, featuring Richard Williams on trumpet, Marvin Blackman on tenor saxophone, Bobby Watson on alto saxophone, and Ron Burton on piano, and Michael Fleming on bass violin. This is a composition that I've composed called Angela.
And this is the same date?
Yes.
So this is 82 again?
Yes.
Okay, so some rather recent, or some of the most recent recordings of Richard Williams from Baltimore, Maryland, the 409 Club, in 1982. Richard Williams with Abdul Zahir Batin and the Notorious Ensemble on WKCR. Abdul Zahir Batin and the Notorious Ensemble. That last one was recorded in Maryland, and who played on that one? Just to remind the people.
First of all, I want to, keep the documentary correct. You are listening to my music featuring jazz profile on the late, great Mr. Richard Williams. That was a composition of mine composed by me called Angela. It's a blues. The personnel on that from June 19th, 1982, day before my birthday, was from the 409 Gallery, and the personnel was Richard Williams on trumpet, Bobby Watson on alto saxophone, Marvin Blackman on tenor saxophone, Ron Burton on piano, and Michael Fleming on bass, and yours truly, Abdul Zahir Batin, on drums.
You said that Richard Williams, helped you when you were first starting out. What do you mean by that? Did he come to work with you, or did he get gigs for you, or how did you?
Well, I had gotten most of my jobs until Ed Williams took over and started representing me, as far as management is concerned. And Richard, he played in my band for about 9 years, playing my music with his ideas,
Okay, so let's go to the next tape, which is
This is from the 409 Gallery with Richard Williams on trumpet, Marvin Blackman on tenor saxophone, and Bobby Watson on alto saxophone, and Ron Burton on piano, and Michael Fleming on bass. These are two compositions of mine. The first one is called Face of Forgotten Thought, composed by me, and the second composition on here is called Dawg, also known as Dizzy Silly.
Right.
That's composed by me also.
Okay, so is that the same date? So that's also
that's the same date with the
1982.
same personnel: Richard
Okay.
Williams, Marvin Blackman, Bobby Watson, Ron Burton, and Michael Fleming, and yours truly, Abdul Zahir Batin, on drums.
In 1982.
June 19th. Trace of Forgotten Thought. I hope you enjoy that composition as much as I did playing it for you. Now we would like to move on with another composition of mine. This composition is titled Deputy Dawg, also known as Dizzy Silly. This composition was arranged also by my friend Pablo Calajero. People.